And welcome to ZekeTalk. My name is Jim Tudor, and this is the truly the final episode of ZekeTalk for the month of March. 2017, not March. What am I saying? We did March. Those are all done. It's August.
Yes, it is
Right?
August for just a couple more hours more.
I was going to just give you another thing to correct me on, Mike. That's because you corrected me last week that when I said this is the last show of August. So tonight I said it's the last show of March, but I caught it. See?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So there's a big blunder right out of the gate. Let's see how the rest of the show is, shall we?
Oh, I'm sure it'll just be as accurate as we always are.
Right. Yeah. With me, as usual, is Michael Anderson in Kansas City. We're a pair of podcasting fools. Mike, how are you?
I'm doing okay. Yes, I'm Michael Anderson, filmmaker and former comic book artist.
Wait, no.
Comic strip artist. Yes.
Is that true?
It is true. I did a comic strip for 2 years in the Pundit newspaper in Kirksville, Missouri.
Ah.
And if you don't know what it means, you can look it up.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's meet our guest.
Yes, with me is on my right is Jessica. Say hello, Jessica.
Hi, Jessica. Was that where that was supposed to go?
Yes, it was. I'm glad you picked up on that. You're going to fit in just fine here.
That's right.
Can I say I'm really excited to hear that you drew comics?
Yes, yes, I did for 2 years. I was a cartoonist on for the Pundit alternative newspaper.
Oh,
yes.
That's amazing.
Not really. You haven't seen them.
I drew comics. Mike would draw. I don't know if you do what you drew in the Pundit newspaper, but at Webster you draw a lot of like kind of Peanuts-esque characters that weren't quite. It was a very distinct style.
Yes. The comic strip that I did was actually a parody of Scooby-Doo, which was sort of infusing Scooby-Doo with the works of Frank Miller and Alan Moore into this really, really dark and depressing, which apparently DC has finally picked up on with their new post-apocalyptic Scooby-Doo comic book that they're putting out now. But yeah, it was groundbreaking back in the early '90s.
Wait, let's back up just a little bit there. The post-apocalyptic Scooby-Doo.
Yes. Have you not heard about this? This is a thing.
No. I knew there was the Mystery Incorporated show, which was like Scooby-Doo for slightly older viewers, and that I guess that was a big hit. But then now they're getting all dark and apocalyptic.
Yes. Well, not super dark, you know. But yes, it is based on someone drew some fan art and people thought it was really cool, and so we have Scooby-Doo was post-apocalyptic.
Post-apocalyptic Scooby-Doo. Well, how about that? That's next week's topic.
Okay.
No, it's not.
That's the topic that if Justice League doesn't pan out, that's where they go next.
Yes.
Oh. Very good, very good. Well, there's been a lot of Scooby-Doo parodies over the years since then. So when you say that you had one, we should point out that this was probably very early '90s, maybe even earlier than that. And
yes, it was parodying The Dark Knight Returns and Scooby-Doo at a time when it was groundbreaking to do so.
Yes, when there weren't mashups and riffs galore on those things. Anyhow, Jessica, what do you tell us about yourself?
Well, I'm a very boring person. I'm an accountant by day and a roller derby referee at night.
Whoa, wait a minute. Roller derby by night.
Yes.
But the referee.
Yes.
Did you just come from there? We're recording this.
No, not tonight. No, thank goodness. We don't have any. Our last game was Saturday.
Very good then. Okay. So when I think of roller derby, I remember a show that I always bring this up and nobody knows what I'm talking about. There was a show, and you're probably not old enough. I could, circa 1990, a syndicated program. And I think I asked Mike about this. Rock and Roller Games. Do you remember this?
I don't.
They were at the Super Roller Dome, and there were teams, and I mean, this is a cast of like, I don't know, 30 people on all the different teams, and they would go around in the circle, and there'd be ramps, and there'd be traps, and there were commentators doing play-by-play. They wore crazy spandex outfits, and this thing.
And they were on skates?
Yeah. There's a roller derby. And they're on, and they went around in the circles, and it was like WWF wrestling, but roller derby on TV, and I just thought it was the cheesiest, kookiest, goofball thing. I couldn't get into wrestling that much, but this, I thought this maybe I could get. It was I think it was too much for the world.
Yeah, we're not entirely sure that Jim didn't hallucinate this during high school sometime.
It was at that time, and I enjoyed the show. I wanted to know where the Super Roller Dome was. That's where they did the show, the Super Roller Dome. They never gave you anything else, and it was very dark in there. And I figured there's crowds. They got to fill that stadium. And I've since learned the trick of putting tarps of black duvetine over empty portions of arena seating. That you do that sometimes at these concerts and things when they don't sell enough tickets, and it just makes the seats go away. But anyway, so tell us about roller derby.
Well, usually the first thing I have to say is that it's not glow on skates. Most people have to explain gorgeous ladies are wrestling.
Gorgeous ladies are, of course.
Because I think that's what it used to be, and that's what everybody pictures in their mind of the old days of roller derby when it got really violent and bloody.
Are there storylines?
I guess. I don't think so, but we're actually a real sport these days. So it's just a lot of misinformation from the good old days of roller derby.
You're not handed a script. It's like, this time the referee gets knocked down and doesn't see the shenanigans. So here's your cue.
No,
it's not
it's
that.
an actual sport. And when I get knocked down, it's usually because I'm not paying attention.
Oh, this happens though?
It does. I actually came in at full speed and had a referee stop behind me. When I turned around, I bounced right off his chest and then bounced off the floor.
Awesome.
Kind of.
Did my favorite thing about roller derby is the team names. They're always if I like in St. Louis, there's a roller derby league, and a friend of mine was in one briefly, and I think it was the arch rivals is what they called it. So you're familiar?
Yes.
So wait, where are you? Can I ask that?
I'm in Kansas City.
Okay.
And I referee for the Fountain City Roller Derby, which used to be the Dead Girl Derby. But I have traveled to St. Louis because for a little while there was a team there called Steampunk Roller Derby. And then just outside of St. Louis in Union and Pacific, there's the Fury. I can't remember the name of that county. Franklin County Fury. Yeah. I go referee for them too.
Wow, I bet things get crazy there because, you're way out in Pacific Franklin County, which is a good, I don't know, hour or so outside of St. Louis. No regulations. Nobody's keeping an eye on things. OSHA is not present. Things can go nuts.
Well, we were skating at the Purina Farms.
That's yeah, that maybe they got to behave themselves there.
A little. The dogs get really mad if we tear up the floor.
Yeah, be careful. But, it's just dog food everywhere at Purina Farms. So, you can trip on a lot of that kibbles. You got to be careful.
We had to sweep the track between every jam.
That's right. Okay. Well, this is fantastic. And I hope somebody somewhere can verify the existence of rock and roller games.
If you can, we have a crisp $5 bill in it for you.
Oh, sure.
Let me quickly write up that Wikipedia entry. I need that $5.
Here's what we have. Our big giveaway is a Raising Cane's box combo.
Does it come vegetarian?
Yeah, this is Raising Cane's. Yeah, vegetarian. This is my supper that's gonna get cold while we do this. So yeah, just showed up. My wife walked in and dropped that here on the printer. It's getting grease all over everything. So if I duck out, you know, that's what's happening.
Okay.
And you guys talk about our topic of the night, which Mike, I'll throw it to you.
Okay, and we want to talk about tonight is the new series on Starz, American Gods, which is an adaptation of the Neil Gaiman award-winning novel from I believe 2001, also called American Gods. And I've of course been a big Neil Gaiman fan for many years. First thing I read of his was Good Omens, the novel that he did was with Terry Pratchett, which is just brilliant. And that got me into Sandman and into his solo novel career. But, I have to say that American Gods was the first solo novel of Neil's that I thought he really brought his A game to. And that was just fantastic. And I am so glad that they brought it to Starz with an illustrious showrunner, Bryan Fuller, who you may recall from Hannibal, and from Wonder Falls, and from Pushing Daisies, as well as the upcoming Star Trek Discovery.
Sort of, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, yes, American Gods become a television series, if not a television phenomenon. I don't know. How is this show being received? Do we have a gauge on how, is this a popular show?
It is very popular among the people that I've spoken to. How about you, Jessica? What's your gauge on the popularity?
I think it's been pretty popular, especially with those who love the book. I actually had screenings at my house for the first few episodes, and I had a good mix of people who have never read the book and people who have read the book and were really excited. My friend Junior and I actually have been following all the updates for at least a year about, they're casting this one, they're casting this one, and we were really excited to see it. And I think for everybody that actually loves the book, they like the way it's been adapted into the TV show.
Yes. So yes, and for those of you who haven't read the book or seen the TV series, the setup for the series is that, okay, gods exist. Odin, Zeus, Jesus, everyone exists, and basically they're a product of people's beliefs. And when the immigrants came to America, they brought their gods with them, and so. We have all the old gods still living here in America, but there are also some new gods that are showing up, and new gods such as media, such as technology, such as business mergers. And
what about Jack Kirby's new gods?
And Jack Kirby's new gods, I'm sure they're in there somewhere.
Because Gaiman would be a fan.
He would be a fan, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And he actually introduced some new ones. He made some of the characters up. So not all of them are actual gods in mythology that he found out about and read and researched, but some of them he added to, like the three sisters in Chicago. The third sister didn't really exist in that mythology.
Mm-hmm. So yes. So, and basically what the book was about, and the TV series, it's a 10-episode first season, and it gets about halfway through the book. But what the book sort of is all leading up to is the old gods versus the new gods. A big smackdown battle between the gods. And as you mentioned, that Neil Gaiman would be a fan of Jack Kirby's New Gods, because as most people know, Neil Gaiman got his start in comics. Not only doing Sandman, but he started off in the superhero ghetto, as it was. The first thing that I remember reading of his was actually a Secret Origins of the Riddler from the Batman series, and that was actually an excellent story. That I'm surprised it hasn't been reprinted more. But yes, he started off there, and he really came into his own with a little series called Sandman, which basically created the DC Vertigo imprint back in the 90s.
It cemented it for a good decade. That's for sure. And it gave the identity to Vertigo, which working in a comic book store back then, and being a fan of just Marvel proper, this Vertigo nonsense was kind of irritating me. It was like I didn't read Sandman, but I knew that it was good. That remains the case. I've yet to catch up with Sandman, by the way. So I haven't actually ever read Sandman. That's a on ZekeFilm we do film admissions. That would be a comics admission. So
that hurts my heart.
What's that?
It hurts my heart.
It hurts your heart. Well, hey, be happy for me that I have that out there to yet to encounter in its for the first time.
Yes. We should actually be envying Jim because he gets to experience Sandman for the first time.
I have this hole in my life that is just this gaping abyss in my life that will be filled one of these days. So anyway, but the thing about Vertigo with Sandman, it was such a success that it led DC to go down the course of forced weirdness in a very forceful way. So all these bizarre other books were happening, and that kind of turned me off to the whole Vertigo thing. So that's kind of why I tuned out for a long time on Sandman, and even Gaiman in general, although I came very much to admire him. A few things that I came to realize the character of Ian Malcolm in Jurassic Park is clearly modeled after Neil Gaiman. Jeff Goldblum in that movie, all black, the look, it's him, man. And then Gaiman, after he'd achieved massive success as a novelist outside of the comic book world, he would say in interviews that he's a comic book writer. Not, he didn't forsake that. He still claimed it, and I just loved that. I thought that was really cool. And also, I think he lives like in Minnesota or something.
Yes.
This British author, it's like, tooling around Minnesota. So that's, I don't know. There's something. There are things about him that are just, interesting and cool. Here's the Gaiman that I've read. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was going to, share a story about how he came to be in his house. And,
yeah, sure.
Basically, I believe his wife at the time, had said that, they wanted to move to Minnesota. And he said, I'll do it if you can find me an Addams Family haunted house.
Oh.
And they found one. And so it was like, okay, well, I guess we're living in Minnesota now.
And you say wife at the time.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is a marriage that's ended, and he's still living in the haunted house?
Yes.
Oh, boy.
As far as I know,
Well, I do know because I'm that fangirl, and he does still live in the house. However, he's now married to Amanda Palmer of Dresden Doll fame, and I think they have houses there and maybe in Massachusetts.
Oh. See, I didn't know about the Massachusetts one. I only knew about the one he has. But how did you first discover Neil Gaiman back in the day?
I was dating a guy who owned a comic book store, and my favorite singer is Tori Amos. And, of course, she has many, many references to Neil in all of her music. And so he handed me Death, the High Cost of Living because she did the opening for it. He said, here, you might like this. And I read it, and I fell in love and started reading all the Sandman.
Oh, yeah. Death, the High Cost of Living is excellent. That I think, is one of his the high points of his comic career.
I've heard that. Did you say Tori Amos did the opening for it, like a collected volume or something?
I think she did it just for the, it was either that or just an excerpt at the back. It was for the graphic novel version, where what they really did was they collected most of the one stories out of the run that were mainly about death, and they put them all together in a graphic novel just about her.
Cool. Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Here, I'll tell you something. The only Gaiman that I read regularly was the Eternals. He did a series for Marvel about 10 or so years ago, right around the time of the first Civil War miniseries that Marvel put out, where all the superheroes had their Civil War, and then they did the Captain America Civil War movie a few years ago, kind of based on that. Neil Gaiman, at the time, did a series for Marvel called The Eternals, and it was very much a tribute to Jack Kirby, who just celebrated his 100th birthday, were he still alive, which he is not.
Yeah. Alas. But I mean, that's one of the things that we all love about Neil Gaiman, is that, you know, he is as much of a fanboy as the rest of us. You know, the great thing about Sandman was just the glee that he took by digging up these old, obscure DC comic characters, like the Prez, the teenage president. You know, he'd dig them up, you know, and do a story about them that at once, you know, was, you know, had thematic resonance and was interesting and just the slightest bit ridiculous. And somehow it all worked and it came together. I mean, you can see that a couple of years back, I guess it's now more like a decade back, but DC did an experiment called Wednesday Comics, where they were doing a large-scale comic book, like it was like a Sunday page. Like, you know, if you had an entire newspaper page to play with and do your comic strip.
Yeah, it was cool.
They let artists and writers do you know, do that, and Neil Gaiman picked Metamorpho, and I just love him all the more for that, because Metamorpho is a sort of ridiculous character. He was created in the 60s, and they gave him all this absurd beatnik-esque lingo. It's like, hey, man. And he just embraced it, and, you know, it was so beautiful. But, you know, he's a fanboy like that, but he's also, you know, he also has feet in other wells as well. You know, it's not just superheroes, but, you know, he basically storytelling of any kind, and that's what Sandman brought together. You know, was, you know, Shakespeare and the Prez and you know, religion and mythology, and just all smushed together. He's sort of an author that everyone can get behind to some degree.
Oh, really?
Yes.
What is the worldview of Neil Gaiman? Can we tell?
Yes, you want it?
Is that a discernible thing? I mean, is there a discernible worldview amid all of these giant ideas that are flying around? Or is he just interested in investigating what's what? Or what might be what?
I think a lot of it has to do with just creating things and learning about the world, studying the history, studying the mythology. He gave a really good talk at a college graduation a while back, and he just said, you know, make art, and just told people to get out there and just do things. Don't worry about if it fails or if it succeeds, but do what you love and make the world better for it. And I think a lot of everything that he does really shows the time and attention that he puts into it, because he wants to make a good story.
So he gave Steven Soderbergh's Oscar speech. Just make art. That was when Soderbergh won the Oscar in 2000 for directing Traffic. I remember he got up there and just said, "Make art." You know, so just rang.
It was a little more in depth than that.
Yeah. Right. No, that's fantastic though. Yeah, I've always been curious though. What does Neil Gaiman think, you know? I mean, it's like he's operating in a realm of religion and iconography and mythology. You know, it's like clearly there's something here. I mean, even, you know, American gods. In the show, do we see all these gods? Is there an actor playing Buddha or what have you?
For the most part, yes, especially the main characters that are gods are portrayed by actors. And then they've done a really good job. In the book, you would get these little snippets of mythology. There would be a story as a preface to a chapter and would give a mythos of some sort, either them coming to this continent and bringing a god with them, or some kind of just a tale of mythology. And the show has taken that and actually put it in and made it part of the story. But quite a few gods. There's Thor, Ostara, Easter. There are jinns from the Middle East, ibis and jackal from Egypt. So it tries to incorporate all the different kinds of people that have immigrated to America. And when they came with them, they brought their belief systems. And so now what are all those? And it's not even just that they brought it and it no longer exists there. So now it's the American form of that god.
Interesting.
Yeah, and, you know, something about Neil Gaiman's background that sometimes gets mentioned is that his family is Jewish, you know, as far as, you know, their heritage. He went to a Christian private school in England, and his father was one of the early Scientologists. So he grew up around many, many, many different religions, and he was just fascinated by it all. And so, and you can you know, see that in his writing, that you know many people, you know, are raised in a certain faith, and you know that's all I know. But you know, he was, you know, going three directions at once from the get-go. So
yeah, so it lends itself to that. I don't know, perhaps to that Joseph Campbell hero's journey, chasing your, you know, your bliss kind of ideas.
It's also just that, I mean, he was extremely interested in all of them, and right. I remember at the time reading Sandman in the letters column, and you know, at the time letters columns were basically, you know, stuff for fanboys to gush about, and you know, you generally get two kinds, but for Sandman you'd get two different kinds of letters. One of them would be from theology professors saying what a great book this was, and the others were for, you know, some of the more gothic people, you know, who were just really taken with the whole you know, death and things like that. So, but yeah, it's like, well, one of the biggest fans that I know of the American Gods is actually going to seminary at the moment in theology. She thought the Easter party with all the Jesuses was just a hoot. So
those cookies were fantastic.
Yes.
Tell us about that. I don't know the scene. So what is this?
Well, basically, Easter was, you know, was originally, you know, a pagan ceremony, but now she's Christian, and she throws a big party for because every denomination has their own idea of what Jesus is. So, you know, it's basically all the different Jesuses from all the different faiths comes to her big Easter party.
So what are the differences? Like, is you know, you have a Catholic Jesus over here and a Baptist one over there, and you know, the Baptist one won't dance or drink or do anything, and is it that kind of stuff?
That sort of stuff, yeah. Jeremy Davies plays sort of the main Jesus.
Oh, there's a main Jesus.
No, just he's the one that gets most of the lines. So,
but which denomination?
They don't say.
No, and it's not even just that it's denominations. One of the actual opening short stories for a different episode was about some Mexicans trying to cross a river to come into America, and they're praying to their version of Jesus, and he actually came with them, and they even have like a little bit of a scene where he's walking across the water to help them, the one who can't swim very well, and he just you don't have the same imagery that we usually see of like the white Jesus with the swath around his waist and things like this. He was dressed just like them in jeans and a flannel, and it's more that the different cultures and the ones that have adapted and adopted Christianity and what their version of him is.
Interesting. Okay. So there's the big Easter many Jesuses party scene, and I don't know. I have to say I'm fascinated.
Well, and I want to say it's not more that she's gone Christian. It's more that they've Christianity's co-opted the whole Ostara Easter holiday, and so it's kind of like a merger, which is alluded to with technology and Mr. World and the newer gods. They're trying to broker some of these things so they can still keep their belief up, which is where the war kind of comes in later. But so they've kind of brokered this merger between Easter and Christianity's Easter, because we still have the bunnies and the eggs and those kinds of things. So she still gets her belief coming to her, but so and that's why she's sharing it with them, and she tries to explain, because Mr. Wednesday, who's Thor, and his buddies show up, and she's trying to explain, no, this is our holiday now, and we all can reap the benefits of this holiday.
And how do they reap the benefits of the holiday?
The beliefs. So the basic premise is that the older gods are losing believers, and the only way a god can truly die is for no one to believe in them anymore. And so that's the big scary that's happening. And a lot of the beliefs are being switched because people don't have that family time anymore, whether it be going to church or having a ritual together. We're spending time in front of TV and watching TV together. We're playing computer games together and those sorts of things, which is how these newer gods of technology and media have come to pass, is because our time is being spent less with the religious type gods and more with this new technology and media.
So in some ways it's this warning, this of where are we placing our priorities these days? Yet it also, from what you guys are describing, I mean, I'd say it doesn't sound like American gods could be out and out considered, pro-religious, old school religious necessarily, because everything does come back to human belief. So at the core, would you say this is very humanist? Like, it's
one of these, the gods are the backdrop, because our main character is a human, and it's very much about the mortal, going up against the gods, and
right.
trying to work things out. Shadow is our sort of our protagonist and our sort of gateway into this realm of the gods.
Sure, but you understand what I'm saying, though, that it's like the concept itself seems to be that if nobody's believing in a god, then the god ceases to exist. In other words, it's humans' belief that causes these things to exist in the first place. They exist, but only because we people say they exist. Whereas traditional religion would fundamentally be the other way around.
Yeah, I would say that's the approach of the story. Yes.
Okay.
And I would say to a point, because it's more of a give and take. One of the points that are pointed out actually when Mr. Wednesday and Shadow go to Easter's house is that they need the belief of the people, but in exchange for that, they do things for them. One of the things was, they used to give us their sacrifices and their belief and their love, and in turn we'd make sure their crops grew. We'd make sure it rained when it needed to and things like that. So it's more of a give and take where we kind of both need each other, but whereas we as humans will probably go on existing without them, they won't exist without us.
Mm-hmm. And again, as the story goes, the give and take, humans would go on without them, but what would we be giving up? And what does it mean if we choose the new gods versus the old gods? And what does that mean for the future of humanity? And it is a very interesting story, from many different angles. And it is, on the core, it is a compelling story about Shadow and his wife. We're missing out, huge swaths of plot that, Shadow was in jail, and the day he gets out, he comes out and he finds that his wife has been killed or has died in a car accident. And but she is soon resurrected. So his dead wife is walking around. And
as normal? Like she's normal, or is she like a zombie?
She's like all sort of decaying, and what happens is one of the she has a lucky coin that gets embedded in her, and that resurrects her, and she's falling apart. She has to be stitched together. At some point one of her arms is fallen off, but she has super strength and
she has all her mental faculties.
Yeah.
So it brought her back to life. I guess you could say her soul's back in her body per se, and her mind's back in there, but the body is decaying at the normal pace.
So she's kind of a superhero then. She gets to come back, but she's got this weakness, the decaying.
Yeah.
Okay, so this show sounds very much like an ensemble of characters and ideas.
It is. Yeah, I mean, and to point out some of the people in it, Crispin Glover.
All right.
Plays one of the sort of lead new god, Mr. World. Gillian Anderson plays Media. You get to see her as Lucille Ball and as David Bowie at different times. You also have Ian McShane as Odin, also known as Mr. Wednesday. So it is just a cornucopia of different great actors, really giving their all.
Wait,
and we should also point out that this is premium cable, and so everyone that we mention tells us about it. It's great, but you got to be prepared. There's a lot of sex.
Really?
And there's a penis in every episode.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good.
Yeah. A lot of them are digital. If you read up on this,
they're digital.
They are, but
yeah.
I feel like they make great strides, because you do see like some naked women, but it's like for every time you see like a woman's breast, you see a man's penis.
All right, but it's all digital.
Oh, some of them
That's
are.
what they say, but I don't think all of them are.
Why would they?
Yeah.
I don't know. It seems, if you're a digital animator.
Well, the thing is, a lot of these penises are, some of them are erect.
Okay.
Which, they figure, how do we make this happen, in a way that makes everyone comfortable on set? And they were like, well, do we build a model, that we can just, or do we just, put in CGI? And they figured, okay, CGI.
CGI, yeah.
Easier than that.
CGI, that'll work. That is a CGI. Yeah. Okay. So, but I was just thinking, if you're a computer animator and it's like, oh, hey, I'm going to work on this prestigious Neil Gaiman show. It's like, okay, here's what we need.
Yep.
And it's like, well, so much for that portfolio piece. Can't really take that around to my prospective employers.
Well, it depends on what job you're going up for.
Trust me, I worked on American Gods. All right, I did. Yeah. So okay. So there's that little disclaimer there for the skittish.
Yes, and I have to say that fair is fair. There's a huge amount of female nudity. Yeah, it's only fair that we have some penises in our entertainment as well.
I'm not complaining. I'm just saying it's the warning for the skittish. I think Jessica said that.
Yes.
Yeah, or you said that. Who said that? It's fine.
I think the world said it.
The world said it.
Yes.
The American gods said it, so it's true. We said it, so then the American gods could say it, so that it could be true.
Yes.
Okay. So let's talk about Bryan Fuller. The mind behind the show.
Yes, he's the showrunner for American Gods. Bryan Fuller, I don't know how many of you have been following his career, but he's sort of made a name for himself doing these quirky little shows. He actually got a start in doing Star Trek episodes. He worked on Deep Space Nine and Voyager, and when he finally broke out on his own, he did so with a Showtime series called Dead Like Me, which was about a slacker teenage girl who becomes the new Grim Reaper. And it sort of showcases he does have a taste for horror and macabre, but also in a very quirky way, and a way that with a lot of humor. And you can see this in his work throughout the years. He did that, then he did Wonder Falls, which is probably his most commercial work, which was about a teenage girl who starts getting messages from the little trinkets that she sells at a tourist shop that she works in. And it drives her crazy that, but they keep driving her crazy and making her do good things, and she just wants to be left alone.
Can I say that when I found out that Bryan Fuller did that, because I looked it up today because I knew we'd talk about it, and I was like, oh, what has he done? So I know. And I'm like, Wonder Falls, I love that show. We had like digital cable at one point in the early 2000s, and I found it on Logo or something. And I was like, this show's great. And it was like, one season, that's it. And then I look for it all the time, and it's never on. And now I'm like, oh, now he's doing American Gods. This fits nicely together.
Yes. And after that, he did Pushing Daisies, which again, very, very quirky, very, it's sort of Amelie with a dark undercurrent, because there's a lot of death and murder in that one when you look at it, but it's all bright and sunny too. And then he sort of went all the way to dark on Hannibal, which he worked on for a couple of years. And never a big ratings thing, but it's just, yeah.
People love it.
People love it, yeah. And
I didn't get to watch it. I saw the movie Hannibal and didn't care for it. So that.
Well, this is a completely different take on the same source material.
It's the Hannibal is the TV series Hannibal is to the Ridley Scott's Hannibal movie, which is what like Joss Whedon's Buffy the Vampire Slayer is to the Christy Swanson Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Is that
would probably be a good comparison. Actually, Hannibal is the one Bryan Fuller series that I have not seen myself.
You didn't see it?
I didn't see it because my wife and I have come to terms with the fact that we are big scaredy babies, and
we just did a horror episode last week.
I know, and I put up a brave face, but
you failed to mention this. That's one of our better rated shows.
Yeah,
it was a lie.
Don't tell anyone.
Okay, it's our secret.
So, Jessica, did you watch any of his other shows apart from Wonder Falls?
I started watching Dead Like Me on Netflix a few years ago, and I really liked it, but I have found that when I binge watch shows on Netflix or Amazon that I've never watched before, I start to see the tropes repeating, and then I get bored with it, so I have to go back, and I haven't gone back yet.
Well, you can just set it up in your, make it a date with yourself to come back to the show once a week at the same time. It's kind of a new way to watch Netflix. The same time every week, just watch one episode. That could work.
Yeah, it
I'm
could.
Just saying.
I feel like the networks might disagree.
I do watch Netflix, not rigidly that way, but just that's the way it works out. Whenever I'm trying to get through a series, it's like, for whatever reason, it's like I'll get in an episode a week if I'm lucky.
Yeah, it's like, not everyone can just block out 8 hours a day to do the full binge.
I don't understand. I've never binged anything. If I ever do, it'll probably be because for like a work assignment, or it's like film critic, like, go, hey, watch all this whole thing and write something. That hasn't happened yet. But I like The Defenders came out like a week or so ago on Netflix, the new Marvel series, and that's, I think, 7 or 8 episodes or something. It's like that thing dropped, and I swear halfway through that day, the first day it came out, there was people who'd finished it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, wait, how? There's not even enough hours to have. You must have fast forwarded through stuff. I don't understand how it. Anyway, I'm off on a tangent here, aren't I?
Get off my lawn.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, how could they have watched 8 hours of Defenders when it hadn't even been out for 8 hours yet? That's all. That's a fair question, isn't it? We have reviews online. It's like you had no time to finish the series, much less write this review.
Obviously, time travelers are among us.
Time travelers.
Yeah.
Bryan Fuller didn't do the Doctor Who, right? He's not have his mitts on that.
No, Neil Gaiman did write some episodes of Doctor Who.
Really?
Oddly enough, yeah.
Which incarnation?
Matt Smith.
Oh.
So yeah, he wrote some of the better episodes of recent years. Yes. So which as a child growing up in Britain, who loved Doctor Who, it was sort of a dream come true for him. He was like, when they talk to him, and it's like, I mean, he's a big multi-million-dollar author now. They talked to him, for their little piddly sci-fi show, and he was like, yes, I will do it.
Please. My whole career's been leading up to this. Are you kidding? Yeah. I'm in.
Who would have known when he wrote that biography of Duran Duran, this is where he'd be today?
Yes.
Wait, what?
That was his first book, was a biography of Duran Duran.
Yeah.
Oh. Was this like at the height of Duran Duran, like one of those things?
Yeah, because he was like in the 80s and he was doing some journalism, and he ended up just picking up that gig and wrote it.
Yeah, he also wrote the definitive guide to Douglas Adams, Don't Panic.
Yes.
That sounds like a natural fit.
Oh, definitely. If you read some of his early short stories, he was really trying to be Douglas Adams, but fortunately he found out who he really was.
Yeah, well, good. Okay, then. Let's wrap this up. We'll wrap up our American Gods Neil Gaiman part of the show here. Any final thoughts on that topic before we go into our signing off recommendations?
I'd just say it's a fantastic show. If you don't mind the occasional penis or nipple.
Oh, I thought you were talking about this show for a minute.
Yeah, yes.
Like, what'd I miss? Okay, no, okay.
Well, I imagine if you enjoy the occasional penis or nipple, you'd also enjoy our podcast as well, even though we don't feature them as heavily, but... Who am I to know what your tastes are? But no, it's a fantastic show. I wish them all the best of luck. I hope they get season 2 so we can finish this thing up, and maybe even continue on into seasons above and beyond that. So,
All right, Jessica, what do you think? Where do you hope they go from here?
Well, they've only really covered maybe the first 135 pages of the book. So they've got plenty to go. And I think that if you've never read the book and you watch it, you'll like it. And if you've read the book and you're worried about it, you don't have to be, and it actually adds a lot that's not in the book. So I think it's just a nice tie-in all the way around.
Terrific. Well, cool. As for me, I'll just say one day maybe I'll watch this thing. Yeah.
okay.
Sounds like a show. I'm still trying to work my way through Twin Peaks, the original. So.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What, you don't like that? Not bad? Bad thing. I like it. I'm enjoying this. In fact, I'm really enjoying this. But I brought it up last week, and I don't know that I've gotten a whole lot further since then. Not by choice, just by circumstance.
Well, eventually you will get to it, and then you can binge the new series.
Mm-hmm. I'm still in season 1, and season 1's like 8 episodes. So that's how slow I'm going.
Yeah. It's a good season. Savor it.
I'm savoring it. Again, not necessarily by choice, but I'm, hey. Mike, what's up with you? What do you got?
Okay, well, as you may have remembered from a couple weeks back when we talked about The Tick. The Tick finally dropped this past weekend, and I have seen the first 6 episodes, and they're a lot of fun. And I'm really enjoying this new incarnation of The Tick. Again, Ben Edlund is the creative force behind it. He's really taking it back to the roots. The cartoon and the previous live action thing really built up The Tick and Arthur into an ensemble with Deflate a Mouse and American Maid, and then later on Batman Well and Lady Liberty. This one really, it pares it down to just The Tick and Arthur again. And so it does feel a lot more like the original comic, especially since they go into a lot darker places. For those of you expecting the cartoon, there are some naughty words in this, but it does go into dark psychological places, and it's serialized this time. It's The Tick and Arthur searching after the Terror, who everyone believes is dead, but Arthur knows is alive.
I like the Terror. That's a good villain.
Yes.
But
and the new villain, who is Ms. Lint, who you find out because she has power over static electricity.
Well, that was Carpet Man had that.
Yeah.
The Tick cartoon character.
Yeah. Well, in this one, she has power over static electricity, and so you see a flashback of her just starting off, and all the henchmen were laughing at her, calling her Ms. Lint, and the Terror takes her aside. It's like, you make that a strength, you tell them what's what. You make that your own. You are Ms. Lint. So that's what she was, and she went and sat. Yep.
So no man-eating cow, no chair-faced Chippendale, no sewer urchin. Is that what I'm hearing?
That is correct. It's the Tick. It's Arthur. Arthur's sister Dot has a major supporting part, unlike previous incarnations. But we get to meet Arthur's stepfather, who is a hoot. One of the best scenes happens like around episode 4 or 5 when Arthur is forced to go to his stepfather's birthday party, and the Tick comes along. The Tick shows up randomly and just has fun talking to his stepdad.
Okay. So who has the potty mouth?
The villains.
Oh, the villains. Okay, not
Yes,
it sounds like
the
I don't know.
terror, the lint. You know,
Right.
they do not like the Tick, and they tell him so with much force and vehemence.
Yeah, so I don't know if I want to hear the Tick swearing. That seems
Well,
odd.
the Tick himself does not swear.
Okay, all
It's
right.
just the villains.
Okay.
The Tick is the same overgrown kid that we all have grown to know and love.
So children shouldn't watch this Tick, or is it? What level of swearing are we talking about? Is this like is this Goodfellas, or is this Back to the Future, or what are we talking about?
It's like Back to the Future with a couple F-bombs, but
Okay. Okay. All right then. Jessica?
Well, I'm a little behind on the times. We've been watching Lost because I never watched it the first time.
Well, Hugh, I love Lost. Loved. It might be the greatest show of all time, except for Twin Peaks and Buffy the Vampire Slayer and WKRP in Cincinnati. But Lost is right up there. Would you agree, or am I overdoing it?
Since Buffy the Vampire Slayer is my very favorite show of all time, I wouldn't go that far, but I think we've made it to season 4, and I did have to turn it off because it was just getting too ridiculous for words, and I couldn't stand it, so I had to stop for a little bit. But I think I'm following along pretty well, and I think it's really good. But like I had to take a break, so we'll see when I get back to it.
that's right. I'm going to have to say, it doesn't quite reach WKRP levels, but
Well, what
There's
does?
no Lonnie Anderson.
No.
That's right. If only they got Lonnie Anderson in Lost.
Well, it would kind of make sense at this point.
I would have watched it at that point. Yes.
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic series, and yeah, stay with it. You know, it gets cuckoo. You know, but it's all part of the fun and part of the brain bendingness of it. It's a show about asking questions, and boy, does it just ask and ask and ask and ask and ask. So that's there's that. Let me think here. I talked about Twin Peaks already. So what was I doing? I was just watching Son of Paleface with Bob Hope.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's almost as good as Paleface starring Bob Hope, but
is it? I've never seen that. I went ahead. I got the Blu-ray sent to me for Son of Paleface, so that'll be a review at ZekeFilm.org that I will be posting there hopefully in the next few days, along with reviews of Barton Fink, the Coen Brothers film, and the documentary Obit about the New York Times obituary section. Son of Paleface is Roy Rogers, it's Bob Hope, and it's Jane Russell, and this is 1952, directed by Frank Tashlin. The promise of seeing a, Bob Hope movie that people say is one of his better movies, that was attractive to me. Roy Rogers and Trigger in a movie, I don't know that I've ever seen them in a movie. I want to see that too. But Frank Tashlin, the director, former Warner Brothers Looney Tunes animator turned live-action director who brought the cartoon logic sensibility with him. And man, you can see it happening in this movie, employing, defying of physics and just that kind of Bugs Bunny rascaliness that, Bob suits Bob Hope very well.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen Son of Paleface. I remember seeing Paleface and Son of Paleface like in a double feature on local television at some point. But I'd forgotten that Frank Tashlin had done that. Frank Tashlin also did some of the better Martin and Lewis movies.
And The Girl Can't Help It is also his with Jane Mansfield.
Yes.
And that's a fun one. That's a great. That's a great 50s. Time capsule right there. So I'll go and recommend the work of Frank Tashlin. I haven't seen it all. I haven't seen the Martin and Lewis stuff you're talking about. But maybe one day. It's a void. It's a dark abyss in my life that needs to be filled.
Maybe, yes. No, that was one of those a revival house when I was living in New York. The Film Forum did a Martin Lewis retrospective, and it was like a different double feature every night.
Man.
So I get to see the Tashin ones, Artists and Models, and the Wild and Woolly West, Out West, something like that.
Was there the cartoon logic in that, like you know, the squash and stretch and the you know, bizarre things happening, like in at one moment in Son of Paleface, I think Bob Hope has something to drink that, you know, makes his head spin literally. You know, he just does that, and then his body spins and his head's in place, and it's this goofy 1950s optical effect, you know, that's enabling this to happen. You know, completely phony, but just the movie doesn't care.
Yeah.
You know, it's just that, there you go, and now back to the nuttiness, you know.
That's great. Yeah, and sorry, just for the record, the Martin Lewis movie that I was thinking of was actually, it's Hollywood or Bust, and the Wild and Woolly West is a song that they sing in Hollywood or Bust. So.
Okay. So there you go, folks. On the fly corrections.
Yes.
Well, all right. Jessica, where can people find you online, if anywhere? Are you on Twitter or what?
I am on Twitter, but I don't really do much with it. Mike knows. He's like, don't my stuff.
I can't figure it out either. Twitter just seems to be about people being snarky and being mean to each other. I'm still trying to kind of figure out what the purpose of this is.
It's really where I boast that I'm backing Kickstarters.
Yeah. Well, that's a good reason.
Yeah, I think you've discovered the purpose for it. That was a very apt description of Twitter.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I'm on Twitter. It's at Jim Tudor Film, all one thing. So
yes, I'm on Twitter as well, at AutoBeatnik.
We're like, so like, yeah, it's Twitter. We have to be there because we do this. Yeah. Yeah. So
that's how I feel about Snapchat.
That I really don't understand.
I don't either.
Why? What's that even for? I heard, you know, Twitter's for being mean and obnoxious to people, and Snapchat's for like having affairs, isn't it? Or like that's what
not the way I use it.
That's not it. That's a different app. Okay.
I have a lot of friends who are like 20 years younger than me, and they do it. They're like, "Oh, you have to come on and send us pictures," and they send me fun pictures. And so I try it, but I don't know how to turn off the notifications. I feel old.
Well, maybe we are old. It's okay.
Snapchat is for making pictures in which you put animal features on your own features.
Oh, it's that.
Yes, I do that.
Yes.
Oh, so like cartoon animal heads and things.
Yes, the noses and the ears and things like that. And it's funny, apparently.
I know. I just proclaimed the virtues of merging cartoon reality with our world, but this is not what I had in mind.
You've taken it too far. You've taken it too far.
I really am. So okay, that's what Snapchat's for. That no wonder that's so insanely popular. I thought, don't the pictures explode after like 7 seconds? It's like somebody sends you a picture and it's like, look at the ears. They've got cartoon rabbit ears. Hey, honey, look at that. Oh, it's gone.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Maybe not 7 seconds, but yes, it is an impermanent medium.
It self-destructs.
Yes.
Okay. Well, folks, read ZekeFilm.org. There's our website. I write for that. And like I said, new reviews going up. I do want to mention a few big pieces that dropped this week on the site. Eric Yates, who is our featured critic, this week will not have any new reviews on account of he lives in Houston, Texas. And we all know the news that what they're dealing with down there. Eric and his family are fine, thankfully. Their house managed, I believe, to stay pretty much mostly dry. Eric's helping other people out. tearing off baseboards and things like that. But all the screenings, of course, in the Houston area for critics got canceled. So that's why you won't be seeing new work from him in that regard. But he did just get us an essay on his thoughts on disaster films and what it's like, thinking about that type of movie that he likes, and now being in the middle of an actual big old disaster. So that is on the site, and I would recommend that. A little different from the regular Houston coverage that we're all seeing. And also, speaking of television, current television, Game of Thrones, a show that I only saw the first season of and never got back to. That is wrapping up its, I believe, 7th season. And Crystal Lion on our site has posted a long piece about Game of Thrones and some of the controversy that has come around it in certain communities. She's a person of faith, should she be watching Game of Thrones? Because she does. She's seen every episode and enjoys it quite a bit. So she's asking those questions. And then also a third piece, aside from our regular reviews and Blu-ray coverage, I just want to tell everybody, Justin Morey has watched 26 circus movies in the last month.
Oh my God.
Yeah. This guy is amazing. He does this sometimes. Like he did a mass piece on every single adaptation of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol that he could come across. He got tons of Christmas Carol movies and knocked them all out in a month, and then wrote a massive piece for the site. And we started a new section just for him, really, called Slightly Obsessed. And so Justin posts in Slightly Obsessed. And 26 circus movies, which he didn't do all 26. He's breaking them into 3 different topics. So the first of the 3 was this past week. So go check out the first wave of circus movies. And it is, as he calls it, a 3-ring circus of circus movies.
Oh.
Each ring being a different type of circus film.
I see what he did there.
Yeah, you see what he did there. And again, it's all kinds of circus movies, ranging from Fellini to Marx Brothers to just you name it, whatever is in there. So please, check out the circus movies and the Game of Thrones and the Houston disaster movie thoughts from Eric. It's ZekeFilm.org, ZekeFilm.org. And thank you for listening to ZekeTalk. And are watching it if you happen to be watching us. I'm sorry I didn't comb my hair. I can't do everything. And Jessica, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Yeah, thank you. And Mike, thank you.
No, it's always a pleasure.
It is. And then we'll be back next week with something.
Something exciting, I'm sure.
Yeah, it'll be good. So until then, thank you very much, and we'll see everyone later.
Happy trails.
Bye.